Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to the video. I'm your host 2B, and this is Current Nethalas into the Midnight Throne. We are going to set up a character for the game, and I will go over the character sheet, telling you a little bit about them, and I'll do a game setup after this to show you how my game is set up, so that whenever you start, you know exactly what is the character sheet about, what is it all saying to me, what are small little things we need to do, and what are the pointers to know what to do. In addition, I have made my own dungeon sheet right here. It is using some part of the character sheet on top, and I'll explain a little bit more about the dungeoneering, how I play myself. As I mentioned in the previous video, I'm not a big fan of the dungeon crawling system. This one, it's a bit awkward to me, so um, I'll show that briefly. But just to get started with the character sheet, on top we have our name. Many people usually have an issue with a name, so I usually take a d20 and a d6. I roll it -1 and take that number to the alphabet, and that is your character name. I'm not going to name my character right now. I'll finish it later on. Over here we have level. Future me here. I'm very much used to starting a character at level 0, and the reason for that is that at each time you level up for this game, each 1000 points of experience gets you a level, and when you are level 4 with, let's say, 410 experience, then I know I have 4410 experience. Nevertheless, on page 14 you start at level 1, meaning the level habilitations are active from the get-go. Which is also something we can see over here. This is the experience bar, and we need to gain a total of 1,000 experience points. And the interesting thing about the rules is that this is the domain, this is the dungeon. Whenever we put our character pawn on the map on this new domain, we gain 50 experience points. So pretty much at character creation, you can add 50 experience points right about here. Now, on personal goals here, I would write down the overseer, overthrown, and I usually say you have 1 of 0, and defeat with blade, 50 of 0. There you go. Furthermore, I've already tallied up all the skills here, and I've already given some masteries. I set acrobatics to 40, and I have applied the +10, which is on the side here. As I mentioned in the previous video, I like to see this as a normal difficulty. I don't add them, and then I say that the game is a little bit harder. That's completely up to you. I haven't seen anything about the rules, what these values are, so that's why I added them and I crossed them out. But acrobatics is 40, athletics is 20, bladed is 60, bludgeoning is 10, dodge is 30, endurance is 20, medicine is 10, the perception is 50, resolve is 30, reasoning is 10, scavenging is 30, we have a shafted of 10, stealth of 20, a thievery of 10, and a unarmed combat or fisted weapons with 60. And where you can get those values is all the way in the beginning of the book. We have this little list over here. This tells you that 60 on a weapon skill, I chose bladed weapons for 60. The +40 I gave to my unarmed, and plus the 20 is then 60. I think that this is a very good choice, especially for a beginner player, because it is possible that you lose your weapon or you break your weapon during a game. To then have a good unarmed combat skill is valuable for your beginner character to get used to some of the dangers that lie in the game. So you're not fumbling like, shite, I really want to play on, and now my character has died or suffered enormously much. So it helps along. Over here we have the 30 skills. I have set one to acrobatics plus the 10, and I gave scavenge another 30. And I think I gave another skill 30. Can't find it at the moment. I think, yeah, perception, and it was plus 20, so that's 50. Then we have 3 of 20, which you'll also be able to find, like stealth is 20. I really like stealth in the game. You have an initial attack, or that your attack is plus 20 at the start, which is really valuable for your first hit, especially when you're trying to perform a critical hit. However, this time I chose not to go stealth. Another 20s is to athletics, which has no dodge was another 20. I think resolve was another 20, and the other 10s reasoning, medicine, bludgeoning weapons. And you will notice that not everything will have a value on them. The thing that I usually do is whenever something's empty, I'll write 10. So for instance, shafted weapons and thievery were empty. I added 10 there because they don't have a value. Why? I don't know. I give them a value because if I need to roll them, then I at least have a value. It's very low. It's not one of the greatest, but leaving them empty is a bit odd. Those are skills. One of the things you can do, and that is something that I explained in the beginning of the previous video, is that armor. Where are you? Here we are. Armor has a maneuverability reduction, which reduces your stealth, your dodge, and your acrobatics by a certain amount. What I would do is use one of these squares and one of these lines to write down the value of how much maneuverability is reducing your character. So write down maneuverability right here, and right here the value of how much maneuverability you're losing, and you can add the value right behind the acrobatics and the dodge and the stealth to show that to you. Not to worry about that with this character, as our mastery is the Bulwark, which completely ignores all armor penalties, meaning we don't have to care about maneuverability, which is cool. We'll get to the masteries. Over at health, I want to do the rolls on screen so you'll know what I roll. For health, we have a d6 plus 8. Of course, I had to roll really bad on camera. It's 9 health points. Toughness is 2d6 plus 10. I know the red ones are cursed. I need to use my own dice. And this one. Better. This is plus 10, so this is 18. And then we have ether. Ether is another 1d6 plus 8. See, those dice roll way better. 13. Then we have sanity. Sanity is also a d6 plus d plus a 8. There's another 13. For the exception that I've chosen the Umbral Phantom, which adds plus 5 sanity. So instead of this being, what did I roll? 8, 13, it's 18. Here we go. Oops. You did not see that. And because we chose an Umbral Phantom as well as one of our masteries, we gain +10 magic resistance. So we have, instead of 20 here, we start off with 30. Here we have our damage modifiers. It's I wanted a damage modifier of 30. I also make mistakes, funny mistakes. The damage modifier is specifically used for whenever you gain a little bit of extra. I would determine this damage modifier rather as an attack modifier, because the game is very much focused on the value that you roll as an attack goes into a table and that results into damage. I'll explain that a little bit later, but read this as attack modifier. It will help you way more in understanding the rules and understanding how damage works. But right now it is 0. Over here we have exhaustion. It's 0 current and 0 resistance. Your exhaustion, there's a specific table in the book that tells you how much exhaustion will work on your character. And the more exhaustion you have, the more terrible it is. Don't worry if the value is 1 through 10, it's not all that bad. If it reaches above 10, you need to start worrying. Light sources. I have a class chosen, which is the Umbral Phantom, and it has on tier 1, it has the 5 ether, it has a sustained ability, and it gives us dark vision. You might remember that Mr. Alex T gave us an example here with dark vision ability, which we couldn't find, but when we start looking really sharply, we find a dark sight, and this is the ability he's talking about. And I'm going to choose exactly that because it's a really strong ability. We don't have to focus on light sources anymore. However, whenever in the game we hold a torch in our hand, which we must have in our hand, by the way. So whenever we hold our sword and shield, we need a third hand somewhere to hold our torch as well. So it's either put away our shield and hold our torch, or put away our sword and, figure it out. Nevertheless, per time we move from room to room, you'll lose a light source. It is quite specific in that one because you also have corridors. So if you move from a room into a corridor, in that corridor you don't lose a light source. That is a very strict interpretation of the rule. So yeah, just each square here is 1 light source. It also says here -1 per room, so it's very specific. For weapons, I already know what kind of weapon we will be wielding. That is a bastard sword. A bastard sword. The skills that it is using is slashing, or it is a bladed weapon, so you can write down bladed. And I'm writing +5 because there's something really interesting about weapons. You'll notice this in the weapon table. When you scroll to it, you will find that weapons have a speed. Some weapons are heavy, some weapons are light, some weapons are just fine in hand. And whenever they increase your speed, they increase your ability. So we have a bladed +5. This means that our bladed weapons is +5, meaning our bladed weapon starts off at 65. The notes. I think it is versatile and parrying. Yes, it is versatile. Versatile, and it has parrying. And versatile is +1 damage point. Scroll back to the book. We have our Basset Sword right here. It says indeed versatile parrying. I've used this weapon before, so that's why I choose it. And the reason why I gain it is in the back of the book here. We gain a weapon of choice, an armor of choice, a torch. I'll go through that. I'll start it at the top. So we gain a weapon, and the weapon has bladed +5 because of its speed. It is versatile, which I'm going to be using it, as it says here. When wielding with 2 hands, this weapon deals +1 damage, and that will go into this modifier right here. So I'll have +1. I keep this space open for a very particular reason. We'll get to that. Over here, we also have parrying +10 defense. Now, again, as I said, you can use these for any kind of effect. So what I'm going to do is say +10 defensive. This pretty much means that if we are defending with our weapon, then we get +10 on our particular roll. So if we have a defense, those are curse dice, I know. We have 65 on our bladed weapons. When we are parrying, it's 75. So 75, we now succeeded with a 26. Here you go. That is what parrying does. Let's see. Yes, the masteries. D2 masteries. I'm just going through the entire sheet, scan through it, and then go to the next page. The first class or mastery that I've chosen for you is the Umbral Phantom. As I mentioned here in this gray box, this is your passive ability. It increases our magic resistance by 10 points. It was 20 for each character, and by +10 it's now 30. And also we gain 5 sanity. So over here in sanity we have a +5. We rolled 13, so it's 18 in total. Over here we have the first tier, as you gain 1 ability each. So I've written down the ability in tier 1. It's 5 ether, it's sustained, and it is dark vision. It is a standard action, and that is pretty much the Umbral Phantom. The passive you write down here, I think this speaks for itself. The second class that I've chosen is the Bulwark. In passive, it says that we ignore armor penalties of any sort of armor, so it doesn't matter what armor we wear, we can forget about that maneuverability. And you can kind of see what I'm doing here with this design of this character. I take away the light source, I take away the maneuverability, and I take away the issue of that whenever you lose your weapon, you at least have a good melee combat skill. So I simplify, or I make the game a whole lot easier, especially if you're a beginner player or don't know how to get through the book, or you find it very difficult. I have taken away a lot of issues, a lot of problems to ease you into the game. So I really hope this character class works for you, this setup. Over here we have the tier 1. It's a reaction. We must decide before we act, but we roll a d6 if we do that, and this is the amount of damage that we then block, or that is the damage reduction that is dealt to us. And of course, that die is rolled on the damage table as well. Furthermore, what they do and what other abilities they have, we'll see a little later. And over here we have our weapon, and as we go through the list in the back of the book, it says you gain a weapon choice. So there you go. I've chosen the Basset Sword, which has a speed +5. It gives us a versatility and parrying, and we'll be using this as a two-handed weapon. Doesn't grant us the two-handed weapon skill, but we use it with both hands. And we have the masteries of the Umbral Phantom and the Bulwark, and write down their passives and their tier abilities. Moving on. Here we are. One of the things that I do on this sheet is the equip gear. Main hand right here. Bastard Sword. On both hands. If you are a character that starts off the game, then you will have to use a hand for another torch. Already mentioned it. Another thing that I do is, this is the belt quick slot, and we don't have a belt, so I'll mark this completely gray. We also don't have a backpack, so I'll mark this completely gray. We don't have pouches, so we can forget about this right away. And you'll erase this so you know you'll have it. There we go. Now we'll start off at the top again. As it says right here, we gain 1 armor from the random armor table. So the random armor table is on 205. Go over there. You have a random armor table here, so that's a d20. I roll a 6. 6 are torso, is a torso armor. So torso armor is then over to this table right here. We have to roll a d100, which is a 72. A nice brigandine. Brigandine, if we scroll in the book to page 193, 94 it is, you can see here that the Brigandine has 3 defense on us, and that's something that we write down here. So we have our torso right here, and we have a integrity of 1d10, so 1d10, 1d10, and a protection of 3. I'm gonna write it down like so. So it's integrity I and 1010, and its defense is 3, 3. The maneuverability we don't have to write down because we are the Bulwark, so we don't lose anything on maneuverability. We don't have to bother with it right now. The rest, what we get on this list is a torch. The torch I've written down in gear. 1d10 cooking supplies, add the cooking supplies right here. 1d10 plus 5 crafting supplies, add the crafting supplies right here. I have crafting of 11 and a cooking supplies of 5. And you also roll a 1d20 for coins. And that is pretty much it for this section. And over here we have our gear. We have 10 slots, so we can carry a decent amount of items. But this is pretty much it up for this sheet. And we also have completed the character creation here. Let's see, we have a few other sheets. Over here we have madness. This will only occur whenever we lose our sanity of our character. As you know, we have 18 sanity, so it will take a while until we go stark raving mad, and we start to adorn things with bones and strange pieces of fur and think about deities and Cthulhu and other stuff. Great. That's what you write down over here. Perks is kind of the opposite thing. Whenever we level up, we have the character progression here, and there are some perks written down over here. No, you do not gain that when leveling up. You gain the perks whenever you succeed your goals, and you write them down here. You can write down anything you want which you consider a perk if you're up for that. Notes is just for anything. Perhaps you have a magical item, write it down here. This is your damage and vulnerability resistance. Pretty much you are open to almost everything from your character's perspective, unless a class said so. There is not really any immunity or resistance that you have at the moment, other than you kind of resisting negative effects of every piece of armor, so that's already quite strong. But this is mainly our acid, arcane damage, cold, fire damage. We don't have these, so this sheet isn't as valuable to us. There's very little to do, but yeah, we'll see. The tension and the layer domain exit. This is starts off. We can scratch out this number. That is something that I do know. The tension starts at a D8 and the layer starts at a D12. One of the things that I would do is a little circle underneath each. And this is a system which I really like, in the sense that whenever we do something, we roll for tension and we roll a D8. It didn't roll a 1 or a 2, so this does nothing. But if it rolled a 2, then what I do is I mark the circle. Now I know exactly that my tension is at this particular level. It had the D8, so now it moves on to a D6. And so on. I keep marking those circles until it has reached a 4. And on a 4, if I roll a 2 or a 1, then we roll on the growing darkness table. Same thing for the layer and domain. It starts at a D12 and it will go down a level each time we roll a 1 or a 2. And on a 4, when it rolls a 1 or a 2, then we encounter the Overseer. You don't have to engage with the Overseer right away, but you choose. It is your choice to engage them. At least you found it in that room. Furthermore, we have the Overseer's influence. This is something we have to determine right now. I'll do it right here. And we have to roll a d10 on the Overseer's table, which is on page 165. So a d10. Number 1, the Infernal Tormentor.